Good afternoon. Welcome to the Google for Education Emerging Trends in Education webinar series. The session today will take a look at creating a strong focus on collaborative learning. On the call, you have myself, Temba Ndimande. I'm an EdTech coordinator at St. Mary's in Waverley, Johannesburg. And you also have Jennifer Hogan, who is an EdTech coordinator at Dapcourt Educational Center in Nigeria. There are a number of other people behind the scenes that are making the stream possible, so be sure to say hi. As I've mentioned, my name is Temba, and I'll be kicking off the session for today. Before we dive in, I'd like to say a big thank you to our partners. Thank you to Open Network, Snapify Education, and MKB Consulting for making this session possible. Here we have 8 emerging trends in education identified by Google. This trend showcases how education is evolving. It is important that we understand each of these trends so that we are able to implement them successfully in our teaching and learning. They act as a good guide to facilitate learning in the 21st century classrooms. Today, we're going to focus on collaborative classrooms, and I can't wait to dive into that. So, by now we have realized that classrooms all over the world are changing. They are moving away from the traditional rows of desk where it was part of the factory model classrooms. Schools are now focusing on creating spaces that put a focus on openness, flexibility, and collaboration. These are important skills to develop, and it is important that our learning spaces reflect this. When redesigning your classrooms, there are a number of important components that we need to consider. This includes things like the light in your classroom, the sound acoustics of your class, the color of your classroom, and the spatial organization. All this impacts students' ability to learn. When you're creating a space that is promoting collaborative learning, you need to consider all of these components. This shift has gotten so many people excited. As Vitas Porter, the chairman of the board of the trustees of the Viking Foundation, has once stated that it's no longer in rows facing the blackboard, which is what it was like when I was growing. Schools are actually encouraging groups to collaborate. And I think this is a welcome change. And I'm sure that many of you here on the call would agree that you feel the same way. Sitting in rows of desks and just listening to the teacher stand in front of the classroom and talk is no longer seen as an effective education model. In fact, a landmark study from the 2012 found that classroom designs alter the student academic progress over a school year by as much as 25%. This is a big change. And 73% of students' progress was attributed to classroom designs, was actually tracked back to flexibility and ownership in one study. When we learn, there are a number of spaces that stand out and make impact on our education experience. We have our home, our social interaction, where we learn from our family. This includes guardians, siblings, family members, peers, and other social interactions. We then learn from various teachers in our schools. Teachers have a profound impact on students' learning. Then most recently, the classroom itself has been seen as a third teacher. The environment in which you learn plays an important role in naturally motivating you, and it is important that it promotes collaboration. However, we don't have to go out there and spend huge amounts of money on new equipment. As Dr. Hannah, an educational psychologist and a researcher in international education, has once stated that most of the time, you will find that the room itself can be adapted in a flexible way to meet the needs of the teachers and the student. It does help if there is flexibility, even in the layout of the classroom. Flexibility can happen from just having furniture that is movable to just change the classroom layout. This can be as simple as just adding wheels to your desk or shelves. Remember, flexibility also encompasses the flexibility of learning. Barbara is going to drop a link in the chat to the Future of the Classroom report, collaborative classrooms. Google has done a report with a number of schools across the globe, from Australia to the United States to the Nordics. So on this page, you can then be able to click on any of the icons, and it will then show you a report of that particular country. When you do that, you will be able to go and read the report. In this report, you can then find the approach that was taken, the stats, and how the emerging trends have made an impact on the teaching and learning. When you start to make this shift, it is helpful to go and read what others are doing. This will give you an idea and an insight to a broad understanding of the global movement. The important thing is that the design of the collaborative classroom should emphasize the importance of group working together or learning together as a group. Group work these days has also look at where you can be connecting with peers in your classroom, also others online. When we're looking at group learning within our physical environment, this entails creating areas for students to be able to sit and work together and to be able to discuss with one another. However, it is important that when creating the spaces, we need to remember that everyone is different and they learn differently. There may be some students who need some of more conversational spaces or the traditional spaces within our classrooms. And it is an acting balance. When you're creating a space that promotes collaboration, don't forget that the key thing is flexibility. So have a pocket that also allows students to work alone when need be. Here's an example of a table that promotes collaboration. Everyone is sitting around the table. There are great round table techniques that you can use in your classroom management to ensure that one voice does not dominate others. This includes taking turns when talking and some other key important that we're going to touch on a bit later. Your classroom layout needs to encourage creativity, collaboration, and flexibility. This allows students to be able to work together with one another, and the students need to also be able to work together, and teachers also need to be able to move between groups. So now, I'm going to just help you paint an idea of what we mean when we're talking of collaborative classrooms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize the power of Google search. So as you know, if I want to know anything, so what I need to do is I'll just type in collaborative classroom. Let's say I want to see images. So then what I'll do is I'll go to the image results. And this gives me a nice idea of what collaborative classrooms would look like. So if I want to narrow down the search, I can then just add design at the end. So I'm now searching for collaborative classroom designs. As you can see now that most of these designs, for instance, this one, does promote flexibility, movement, encourages movement around the classroom. And if I then therefore just check how would furniture look like, so now I would search for collaborative classroom furniture. As you can see now, that all the results that I'm getting, they have something in common. That one thing in common is that if you look at this picture, The desk and the chairs have wheels, so that promotes flexibility, meaning that teachers can be able to move desks freely and chairs freely just to create different layouts to encourage movement and suitable layouts for different type of activity that you can have in classrooms. Then I'm going to just look at classroom layouts so that you can have some ideas what I mean when I'm talking about classroom layouts. Let's look at what we get. So now, as you can see, if I search for classroom layout designs, I can therefore see how I can use different types of layouts in my classrooms to promote flexibility. At the very same time, you need to be very aware of the layouts that you can use for different types of activities that you have in your classroom. For instance, this one is more of a teacher being in charge of a discussion, and there's plenty layout designs that you can use for your classroom. So now let's go back. So I hope that actually did give you some idea of what do we mean when we talk of collaborative classrooms. Remember, it is important that you need to start with what you have. Start thinking on how you can use the existing classroom to promote flexibility. There are some general things that you can do and put in place to promote collaborative classroom in order for you to have an advantage as a teacher, as well as to support your students. This would include collaborative guidelines, promoting active listening, understanding how to craft questions, discussions with confident models of practice, and acknowledging each other as individuals that add value. So we are going to unpack this in more details. So the first part that I'm going to touch on is collaborative guidelines. If you have guidelines in place, when working as a group, it does help to set the tone and let the students know what is expected. However, this is a decision that shouldn't be made by a teacher alone. You should take this as an opportunity to collaborate with your class, with your student, in creating the agreement and the guidelines that you're going to use as a class. By doing this, you're actually giving the learners the opportunity to have a voice on how the space is supposed to look like, and you provide them with accountability. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how to use my favorite product within the Google Suite, which is the Google Docs, on how can you use that to collaborate with your class. So I'm going to open a document. So this will act as a collaborative classroom agreement that you would use with your class or with your students. So now, if you can check here, this document has already been shared with a number of people that are within the call. So as you can see now that Katie is typing as well as Barbara is also typing. So they are sharing their input in terms of what they would want in their classroom to be part of the guidelines that they would use. So this actually helps with working on one document, unlike in the olden days whereby you would need to work in individual documents. In this case, everyone is working on one document at the very same time. So another thing that you can use is the power of commenting, right? So on Google Docs, you can then make comment on statements that have been made. For instance, let's read one of the statements that we have here. Each learner needs to have a voice so that we can collaborate together. So what I can do is, if I want to collaborate, if I want to comment on this, I can then just highlight by right-clicking, then adding a comment. Then by adding a comment, I can then just say, I like this. And if I click there, then I've added a comment. There's another way of actually using the comment function. You can actually use the comment function as a directed to an individual within the document. So what I can do is I can therefore just highlight this point and add a direct comment to Katie and say, Katie, great idea. By just using the @ this allows me to actually direct the comment to a certain individual. So now let's just move on and scroll down. So as we move on and scroll down, you'll see now that you have a table that will give learners an opportunity to agree. So by writing their names on this block, then they do then agree that they will follow those guidelines and then they will be accountable. So by far we have Joseph that has commented and Katie has also commented, right? So now you must be wondering, how can you then share this document with your kids? So I'm going to just show you that before we start. So what you need to do is you need to click on the blue button. Then as you click on the blue button, what then you need to do is to have an email in mind. So let's say I want to add Lerato. I then type Lerato's email, then I click on it. Then what I also need to be aware of is the access level that I'm giving Lerato. So now, as you can see, there are 3 options. The first option is the viewer. So as a viewer, the options that you have is that you can only view the document. You cannot make any changes. You cannot make any comments. And the second other option is the commenter. So if you are given the access of a commenter, that actually means that you can view the document and you can only then comment on the document, but you cannot make any changes onto the document. Then the last one, which is the editor. So with the editor, what that then does is that it gives you the opportunity to share access levels that will make the other party to be able to delete, add, or make changes, also make comments on to the document. So what then you would need to do is to then click on the editor to ensure that your students are able to make those changes within the document, or they're able to add their input on the document. By then clicking on send, then they would have access to the document. So that's how you can then collaborate and create the guidelines with your classroom. It is important to promote this type of collaboration, and there is a framework that you can use that has been designed for adult learners, but it can also be used in your classroom as well. Pause and give time for quiet. Paraphrasing to ensure that you understand what someone else has said. Posing a question and not just giving answers. Putting different ideas on the table. Providing data and understanding the importance of this. Paying attention to others and self. And lastly, you need to assume that everyone has a positive intention. Do not assume the worst. When team members are given roles and responsibility to fulfill, it becomes easy for them to collaborate because of they know what is expected of them. In a collaborative classrooms, the teacher will need to be aware that they are guiding multiple groups at the same time, which makes sense in having a group structure. It is important that each student is given a chance to play each role. There are many roles that your learners can fulfill and encourage them to take responsibility of their roles to ensure that there is a group success at the end of the day. You have an investigator. So an investigator is responsible in doing the research of the chosen topic and ensuring that the group has all the information that they need to complete the task. You also have a facilitator. They keep the group as a whole on the task, and it helps to ensure that everyone is contributing fairly. Then you have the recorder. She needs to take note of the important points that have been raised, the idea that the group is sharing, and they also need to write up the final report for submission. Then you have the material manager, who helps collecting, distributing, and picking away the materials that the group needs and uses throughout the task. Then you have the checker. The checker needs to check the group's point of view of accuracy and help the group to think clearly during brainstorming sessions before submitting the report. They also need to check it. Then you have the reporter. So now with the reporter is tasked with delivering a summary of the ideas that have been discussed by the group at large. They need to make sure that they talk for the group rather than talking for their own personal views. So now you can actually create your own titles. Don't be stuck with the ones that we're sharing. You're more than welcome in creating your own one. But for now, I'm going to invite Jennifer Hogan, the awesome Jennifer, to continue with the conversation and the discussion of the next important collaborative component in the collaborative classrooms. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Themba. I'm excited to be here. And as Themba mentioned, my name is Jennifer Hogan, and I am the EdTech Coordinator at the Dovecote Educational Center, Port Harcourt, Nigeria. And I'm looking forward to the next part of our discussion. The next topic we're going to talk about is being an active listener and what active listening entails. Now, good listeners are rare these days. Everybody wants to speak and be heard. But when you're an active listener, it means that you're truly engaged with the person you're talking to. Now, listening is an active process. You're not trying to multitask. You're giving the person full attention. Now, when you listen actively, you're looking at the person in the eye and listening attentively while that person speaks. Now, this is quite a hard skill to develop as we're all distracted by the world around us. Active listening is not just looking through a person or looking at the person eye to eye. It's about the person's body language, how to interact without interrupting the person. Active listening also includes being able to paraphrase what someone has said to confirm your understanding. Now, a good listener always withholds judgmental advice. Now, there are some fun activities you could use in your class to promote active listening. Now, we have 3 here. We have think, pair, share, 3 before me, and a thinking pair. We're going to take it one at a time. Now, let's start with think, pair, share. This is a collaborative learning strategy where students will work together to solve a problem or answer a question. Now, first, what you want to do is ask them a question. Start off by posing a question to your learners and ask them what they think about it. But what you want to do is give them time. Now, so often, this is something we miss. When we pose questions to our learners, it's very important that we give them time to think about it before giving us feedback. Now, once you've given them time to think about it, they pair up with their peers or their classmates. Now they have the opportunity to say what they're thinking aloud. Now, during this phase, they are practicing their active listening skills. They will ensure they give their peers full attention. The next phase is for them to share or report what they've discussed to the entire class. Now, when doing think, pair, share activities, you can set timers to each of these. Now, Barbara is going to pop a link so you can do or make a copy. Now, what you want to do, this is think, pair, share. Now, for think here, we have a timer set for 1 minute. So while your learners are thinking, what you can do is set up a timer and let it run. So while they're thinking, this is playing, okay? So it's going to count up or count down depending on what you want to use it for. Now, the next we're going to look at is pair. So while they're pairing, you're going to give them time to pair and think about it. Then they go on to share what they have discussed. Now, I'm going to show you how you can add timers to your slides. What you want to do is click on the add button here, the new slide icon at the top left corner. Once you do that, it's going to add a new slide here. Now you're going to insert a video. Now you're going to go to video here, click on video and insert or type timer. Now we have different timers you can choose from here. You see the 30 minutes timer, 1 hour, 15 minutes. So whatever you're going to use it for, that's up to you. So I'm going to select this 30 minutes timer here and I'll click on select. So once I've added this, what I want to do is expand to fill the screen. So I've added this timer. So while giving my learners think, pair, share activities, you could play this timer for them while giving them time to think and reflect before sharing. Next, we're going to look at 3 before me. Now, this activity can be used in 2 ways. First, it can be used with the students and their friends by pairing up with one another. Now, a student asks 3 of his friends or 3 of her friends a question, okay? Now, what you're doing is promoting their active listening skills. So while the 3 students are listening, they don't say anything. Alternatively, if you have a student in your class who struggles with restraining themselves, the 3 before me activity will be their guide on needing to listen to other students before sharing theirs. Now, this really encourages them to listen attentively to their peers and not shout all the time. I'm sure we all have that child in our class that tends to shout all the time. Now, the last one we're going to talk about is a thinking pair. Now, in a thinking pair, you're promoting active listening through pairing your learners and letting them spend time thinking out loud for 5 minutes. Now, learners will spend 5 minutes talking to their peers about a given topic or something that's on their mind. The partner will listen actively for those 5 minutes. Now, this can be quite a challenge for children who struggle with thinking and talking aloud at the same time. But the whole time while this happens, the partner is not allowed to say anything for these 5 minutes. Instead, they practice their active listening skills. They make eye contact and listen intently. After this exercise is done, they switch over. So the person listening becomes the person speaking, and they go over this process again. Now, at the end of this exercise, no one says anything about what the other person stated. Simply, they appreciate one another for sharing, okay? And this is a great activity to incorporate into your classroom. We're now going to move live to a practical activity and showcase how you can use Google Forms for listening comprehension. Now, first, what you want to do is sign up to Google or sign into your Google account. You're going to click on this icon here. It's going to display a range of tools by Google. Now you're going to click on Forms. Once you've done this, you're going to select a blank document. Now this is going to pop up. This is the blank document. First, what I like to do is go to the settings icon up here at the top right corner. So you click on settings, click on quiz, and make this a quiz. Also, what I like to do is click on later after manual review. So I like to review my learners' work before actually sending out the results to them. So I'm going to click on save. Now this is already a quiz. What you want to do now is title this form. I'm going to title this Listening Comprehension. You could rename it here too, but what you see is that it's automatically changed at the top left corner. Now I'm going to insert a description here. So whatever you decide, depending on the subject and the topic you're teaching, I'm going to insert answer all questions. Answer all questions. Now, depending on what you're teaching, I'm going to insert first name and surname. Of course, you want to know who is submitting what. So first name and surname, or first name and last name. I'm going to change this to short answer. So you're going to give them just a short box for them to input their first names and their surnames. I'm going to go on here to add question. Then I'm going to select add video here. I want them to watch a video before answering questions concerning that video. So I'm going to click on add video. So depending on the topic, I'm going to choose mammals. So what I like to do is watch this video before sending it out to my children to watch. So I'm going to click on this because I've already watched it. So I'm going to select this, and you can see it's already been added. So I'm going to title this Mammals. Then I could go ahead to ask questions concerning this video. Now I'm going to add a question here. So you could ask a question like, what is a mammal? Then you want them to be able to input their answers. You can either choose short answer or paragraph. So I want them to go on and on explaining what a mammal is. So I'm going to choose paragraph. I'm going to add another question. Which of these is not a mammal? I'm going to go ahead to add some options here. Humans, polar bears, crocodiles, elephants. Okay, so I'm done with this question. But what I also like to do is add images for our visual learners. You know, a picture and image speaks 1,000 words. So I like to add image here. So I'm going to add the image of a polar bear. So you're going to click on that. It's going to bring you up to this. So you can either select an image from your computer by clicking on upload here, select from your drive, or Google image search. So I'm going to click on Google image search. Now I'm going to search for polar bears. We have different images you can choose from here. I'm going to go on and select this image and click on insert. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for this. I'm going to add the image of an elephant. Select and click on insert. Do the same thing for crocodile. So you can select whatever image you want. I'm going to choose this and click on insert. All right, so this is a question here. I'm going to go ahead and add another question. Now we've noticed that this question here is multi-choice. I'm going to go ahead and show you how you can use check boxes. Now this gives them an opportunity to choose from different options, choose different answers for one question. So check boxes, I'm going to make these check boxes. So select or choose the mammals from the list below. I'm just going to go ahead and add some options for them. Elephants, crocodiles, kangaroos, rabbits. So this question is done. Also, you could ask your children true or false questions. Now I'm going to input true or false. You can see that it automatically pops up this suggestion here. So I'm going to click on add on and it's automatically appearing here. So I'm going to cancel that and ask this question. A snake is, sorry about that. Snake is a mammal. They're going to choose either true or false. Now, after this is done, you could go through your questions by clicking on the preview button here. But before that, let's go ahead to ask or to add points to these questions. Now, you can do that by clicking on the answer key here. A snake is a mammal, false. I'm going to award 2 points to this and click on the answer false. So we've selected the right answer for this question. You can also add a feedback. So whatever your children, or whatever your learners choose, they could get a feedback from you instantly. So add answer remarks. So if they choose an incorrect answer, you could type something like, that's not quite correct. That's not quite. Save. And for the correct answers, you could input amazing or great job. Once you're done with that, you click on save. You can also duplicate your questions by clicking on the questions. This icon here shows that you can duplicate your questions. You can also delete a question. So if you've made a mistake or you don't want a question anymore, you can go ahead and delete it by clicking here. Now, something you can do to add questions, a quick way you can add questions is by clicking on import questions. So you can import questions from forms you've already created by clicking here, import questions. So you can click here. So you can see some forms I already have in my drive. So I can select this form. You can either select all if you want to add all the questions from that form, or just choose from the check boxes here and click on import. Now, after this is done, I would like to preview and look at my questions. So you click on preview, and this is how your questions come. Okay, so I'm fine with it. It looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and send it to the kids. So I'm going to click on send here. You can either input their emails or click on this icon here where you can copy the link. So you're going to copy the link and paste it in their Google Classroom or just send it to them on any platform. So I'm going to search here, Google Classroom. I'm going to create an assignment. So I'm going to title this Mammals. Click on add the link. So your instruction could be, depending on your subject, click on the link below. Click on the link below, watch the video and answer the questions that follow. So once you're done with that, you could assign it to your children, and that's Done. Now next, if you're looking for something that does not have visuals, consider making Google Forms with voice notes. Isn't that amazing? Voice notes. So for example, in this form, there are a number of sections that have been set up. At the top of each section is a voice note of the teacher reading a paragraph from the set work. Now, after that paragraph, there are set questions that they need to answer based on what they've heard. Now, just as you send regular voice notes on your instant messenger, you can also do this, upload it to your drive and attach it to a document for your children to listen to. Now, once they're done listening to this paragraph and they're done answering the questions, they now move on to the next section. Here, they will listen to another voice note, which is simply a hyperlink to the audio file in your drive and answer the question. Now, this is truly promoting them to listen to the spoken words and answer questions based on that. Now, learners need to be taught and therefore learn to ask questions. Now, understanding a question and being able to construct a good question are both valuable skills for the world we are living or working in today. Now, I like to think that in the classroom or in the learning environment, there are no wrong or right questions. So we should always encourage our learners to ask questions. Go ahead and ask questions. So now here's a quote from Dan Rostein and Luz Santana from Educational Leadership that will motivate you to challenge your learners. Now it says, once students learn how to ask their own questions, they can become active learners in every classroom, no matter the subject. Karen Wallstra, a leader in the EdTech field, she highlights the importance of 3 pillars of asking questions. Now, you have questions that showcase knowledge and understanding, generally known as lower order thinking levels. You have questions that need you to or help you to apply and analyze information, which is known as middle order thinking skills. Now, lastly, you have questions that need you to evaluate or create a scenario. This belongs to the higher order thinking level. So we're going to take it one step at a time. Now, lower order thinking questions allow learners to group information and show understanding of a content or recall information such as dates. Now, they're demonstrated by recalling information, explaining an idea or concept. So you could ask your learners questions like, define a mammal. What is this? Describe what matter is. State the types of matter. So these are basically lower order thinking questions you could ask your learners. Now let's go on to middle order thinking skills. Now this requires your learners to adapt knowledge to alternative situations. So they adapt the knowledge to a different situation entirely. Now they need to be able to analyze the information and distinguish between different aspects or parts. Now, questions you can use to guide your learners include, you could ask them, examine something or solve a problem. So say there's climate change or global warming. What can you do to solve climate change or solve global warming in your area? So these are questions you can use to promote critical thinking in your classroom. So now let's talk about higher order thinking. In higher order thinking, we ask our learners to make choices based on reasoned arguments and to verify the value of the evidence given. Now, you want them to justify their own standpoint or their own point of view. So you could ask them questions like formulate, design. Can you design investigate a possible solution to, say, climate change or global warming or waste management in your area? So these are just questions you can use to stimulate their minds. Let's have a look at some activities that you can use using Google Slides. Now, Barbara is going to pop up something in the link so you can make a copy. Now, here are some slides you could use to ask your learners some questions. Now, first of all, what you want to do is add their names. Again. Okay, then you could ask questions like, what kind of bird is this? Or what animal is this? What bird is this? Okay, you can go ahead to ask questions like, why is this different from a parrot? Or why is this different from a rooster? Why is it different? So these are questions you could ask. And also from the physical environment here, you can see that it looks like a snowy area. It looks like a polar region. So you could ask them to compare the physical area here to a desert region. Why is it that this animal can survive in this area and not in a polar region? So let's go on to this. They're going to go ahead and add their names in this too. So you could ask questions like, what is a settlement? So this looks like this is a settlement. So what is a settlement? Okay. You could also ask, what kind of settlement is this? What makes this settlement different from the settlements in your local area? Why is it linear? Is it dispersed? Is it clustered? And give reasons why this settlement is this way. So these are just questions you could ask your learners. Now let's go on to asking deeper questions. Now we want our learners to ask questions concerning the world. Now Barbara is going to pop up a link, so make a copy of that. Now this here looks like climate change, global warming. You can see smoke going up into the air. So they could ask questions like, what is global warming? Given available resources, what can you do to solve global warming? They could ask questions about hunger and poverty, third world countries, quality education, renewable and non-renewable energy, migration. So these are questions you can ask your learners. Now, to add this call out, what you want to do is click on the new slide icon here, the plus icon here. It's going to add a new slide. You're going to click on insert. Next, you're going to click on shape. It's going to bring out this. Click on call outs. So I'm going to select this call out here, this oval call out. So what you want to do is click and drag. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a text box. So I'm going to select this here. So you're going to click and drag. So what you're going to do is input their names here and ask their questions concerning any topics you pose to them. So ask a question like, what is global warming? What is global warming? We could also ask questions, to solve world problems, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to solve problems of the world. Okay. All right. So thank you so much. It's been amazing, and I hope you were taking notes and you took 1 or 2 points down. I'm going to hand this back to Themba as he wraps up this session with a few more points before we close. Now over to you, Themba.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. I really enjoyed your presentation. I told you that she was amazing. And if you do have any questions, please don't forget to pop them in the chat. So now we are going to move towards the end of the session. And before we do that, we have a few more things to talk about. So now we're going to look at discussion experts, right? So in your collaborative classroom, you are teaching students to be discussion experts. You want them to feel comfortable in their ability to discuss any topic, and this is what truly would be considered as collaborative. You as a teacher, you are a model to your class. It is important that you're showing them how to engage and how to listen actively on a daily basis. Be sure to practice the skills that we have chatted about, such as paraphrasing, posing questions, providing data, paying attention to yourself and others. This may be with the students in your class, or teachers or parents at the school. Students will be looking for you for guidance. As you know that teamwork makes dream work. Two minds are better than one, but if you have 3, 4, or more, that is better than 2. It is important that we actively practice listening to each other. We know now that change is a hard thing, so you have to be patient and you have to practice this, and we know that it's going to take time. However, there is a great framework that you can use or you can implement in your school with this change. So, when we manage change, we need to have a vision. There needs to be skills in order to execute the vision. Incentives help to motivate as to why the vision is in place. We need to have resources that help to fulfill the vision. And the action plan also helps to execute the vision. And together with this, it will give you success. However, if the action plan is missing, it will cause a false start. If your resources are missing, it will cause frustration. If the incentives are missing, it will lead to resistance. If the skills are missing, it will cause anxiety. And if the vision is missing, it will cause confusion. This model can be helpful for students to understand and to use as well as us, the adults. So now I'm going to just open the Google sheet that you're going to use with your students. So this would then have the vision, the skills, the incentives, the resources, and the plan, right? You can use this with your classroom. And just to remember how to share, what you need to do is you then click on the share button and ensure now that you share it with any one of your students. So for an example, I'm going to share it with Lerato. So then I'll just type Lerato's email, then select Lerato. Then don't forget to ensure now that you do select the right access level. We always want, in this case, in such situations, we want our kids to be editors. So you just click on editor, then send, then by doing that, you can then be assured that you have given them the access to the document. If you're interested in learning more, head to the Google for Education Transformation website, where you can read more on how to design your classroom that can foster creativity and student agency. There is a skill course that you can also learn more about on how to use Docs Drive to motivate group collaboration. Both of these links will be in the resource pack, as well as other activities mentioned today. And there are many other examples that you can use in your classroom tomorrow. Please do not forget to give us a feedback by filling out the form. Barbara will pop in a link into the chat for you. Thank you very much for being here with Jennifer and I today. And thank you, Barbara, and thank you, Katie, for the content development for this session. If you have any questions that you would like us to address, otherwise be sure to follow Open Network Digital Skills Africa and MKP Consulting on Instagram. So their handles should be Open Networks _ then for Digital Skills Africa, it should be Digital Skill FA. Then for MKP Consulting, their handle is MKP Consulting Ltd. So please be sure to follow them on the Instagram and other social platforms. I have enjoyed the session and I wish you all the best in creating the collaborative classrooms that will promote flexible learning. Thank you very much.